Hello everyone and welcome to the Bard class version. Before we jump into it today though, I would just like to say that the Bard has always been a really fun and awesome support class in D&D for with any party, being able to kind of give various party members or other creatures that might be in your group the ability to add a bonus to ability checks, to saving throws or attack rolls is a super good buff and kind of a way to be able to support your party. Additionally, they're a full caster, which just gives them a whole range and arsenal of various spells that they can do to also not only support their party members but themselves, and then also be able to deal damage with that as well. But I unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast didn't do a whole lot when it comes to actually building this class up in a significant way. I was kind of hoping that they would at least add on and maybe make some interesting new features for the Bard in order to maybe support the party more, or maybe to give them a more identifiable kind of root identity. But it didn't really do a whole lot. And even from the 2014 version, there wasn't too much added on top of it. They tweaked a couple things, but seeing that, I definitely went into this wanting to kind of build upon the inspiration, the Bardic inspiration feature, and I also wanted to kind of tweak the tool set a little bit. I wanted to kind of adjust some things and kind of make them a little bit more standalone and not so much like the rogue, because I feel like in the past the Bard has been compared to the rogue a bit in terms of it's basically just a rogue with spells. Obviously, they have some core different features, but with a lot of the skill proficiencies that it gets, it does kind of almost come in line with a rogue-like character, and so I kind of adjusted some things to make it feel more standalone and kind of have more of its own identity, especially in that kind of support role. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and we can go ahead and see everything that's been adjusted, changed, and added. So let's do it. All right, so first things first, the big window that you're going to see here is going to be my version of the Bard here over to the that way over on this side, and then above me is going to be the Unearthed Arcana, where I got a lot of the kind of the inside of what Wizards of the Coast was planning on changing. On top of I have also seen various videos of what the actual finalized 2024 version of the Bard looks like, and then of course I do have the 2014 Player's Handbook here with me, so that way we can kind of compare all these different kind of versions together and see where everything has changed and been adjusted. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So you have obviously the table here at the top of it. And one big thing I want to go ahead and annotate, and one big thing I wanted to adjust with this class, is you can see here a lot of the gaps that are in the Unearthed Arcana version here. And I mean, that was there's actually more gaps in this version in the UA than there was in the 2014 version, and I'll get to why that kind of is. But I wanted to fill those gaps a bit. I definitely wanted to make sure that the class has a lot more reward in terms of scaling through it and making progression through the actual class. And so that's where I kind of wanted to make sure I filled the gaps in here. So let's go and jump into it. Hit points are going to go ahead and remain the same. Let me go and scroll down here with this. Proficiencies are going to actually go ahead and remain the same. Dexterity, charisma. The awesome thing about the Bard is you can have 3 skills of your choice. Any skills, musical instruments, of course, since you are a Bard, and then light armor, simple weapons. The equipment options here in the beginning are actually going to go ahead and fall in line with what they introduced with the Unearthed Arcana, where you can either have X amount of gold, or you can go ahead and choose the amount listed with a gold kind of remainder. Moving on, now we kind of get into the actual class features. So starting off, we have Bardic Inspiration. So you can supernaturally inspire others through words, music, or dance. This inspiration is represented by your Bardic Inspiration die, which is a D6. Using Bardic Inspiration. As a bonus action or reaction, you can inspire another creature within 60 feet of yourself who can see or hear you. That creature gains 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration dice. A creature can have only 1 Bardic Inspiration die at a time. Within the next hour, the creature can roll the die and add the number rolled to an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw it makes. The creature can wait until after it rolls the d20 before deciding to use the Bardic Inspiration, but must decide before the DM says whether the roll succeeds or fails. A Bardic Inspiration die is expended when it's rolled. Number of uses, you get a number of Bardic Inspiration die equal to your Charisma modifier, at least 1, and you gain them all on a long rest. And then at higher levels, your Bardic Inspiration becomes better. A D8, D10, D12 at the respective levels. So biggest differences here Wizards of the Coast has introduced in the Unearthed Arcana and in the finalized 2024 version is going to be the fact that it lasts now an hour instead of just 10 minutes. In 2014, it was a 10-minute duration. I really like the fact that they actually increased that range, so that way you can have it for much longer. You can have it for, say, if you're while you're exploring, while you're RPing, while you're kind of out in the world, it gives you a lot longer of a buffer to be able to use that. Whereas especially also in combat, you can now have it for the full duration of combat if needs be. And so that's a really good addition there. I will say though, they changed this so that once within the next hour when the creature fails a d20 test, the creature can roll that die and add it to it, potentially turning it into a failure into a success. I actually reverted my version back to the 2014 version, where within the next hour, the creature can roll the die and add the number rolled to an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw. I wanted to specify what you could do that with. I know that they were trying to simplify it with the newer version of D&D of saying D20 test and how it can be all encompassing. If you're rolling a D20, that's basically what you can add it to. I wanted to specify the things that you can do that with. And then I just like the idea of being proactive with your Bardic Inspiration. I like the fact I like you having to kind of tack it on before the outcome of it of the check is determined. I just like that a little bit more. It's a little bit more proactive than reactive. I also just like that you kind of have to gamble a little bit. I do kind of like that. I know that they I think Wizards of the Coast, I think their mentality with this was the fact that they wanted you to be able to kind of know for certain if you failed, so that way you can then choose to expend this resource. But I kind of like the mystery of like, hey, you can either kind of gamble it that you've already passed, or you can make sure you get bumped over, or you can use it to really make sure, to really push you if, say, you're in like a low spot on your roll, and so you can really use this to kind of hopefully push you over that threshold. I like that a lot more personally. If you don't, feel more than free to roll it however you want, but that's how I kind of have it fleshed out. Another massive change that I have done is that as a bonus action or as a reaction, you can use Bardic Inspiration. Big reason why I wanted to be able to do that is because I really wanted the bard to feel like they can be reactive in the support and assistance that they can offer with the Bardic Inspiration. I think if you leave it as just a bonus action, that means that you have to be very intentional and almost have to hand it out ahead of time in certain situations, where I feel like if you can do it as a reaction, it means that you can actually you can expend the Bardic Inspiration a lot more often, and it makes it feel like you can kind of intercede and you can have more agency in a situation than, hey guys, I'm gonna start handing these out to everyone, and then if in the next hour hopefully it comes up, hopefully you can use it. I like the fact that you can almost intervene on a situation and give a party member or a creature that kind of assistance that it would desperately needs. So that's another big thing. Other than that, though, those are the main changes that I made to Bardic Inspiration. I think it's a lot more versatile in this capacity, and so I really like where it's at now. So moving on to spellcasting, I am not going to read spellcasting because that is just a wall of text. But if you do need to, read it over, I'm just going to pause here for a second so you can either pause the video or just read it to yourself. I'm just going to slow scroll here. Biggest thing I will say is that changing your prepared spells, whenever you gain a bard level, you can replace one spell on your list with another spell for which you have spell slots, and that is on the bard spell list. So this full caster doesn't have as much agency in terms of changing its spells, and it has to wait till level ups to be able to do so. But I bring that up because of a feature later on. And so another big thing is that the 2024 version of D&D, they broke up all the spells into primal, arcane, and divine. They added them to 3 different categories. I have reverted that back to just having class spell lists. Mainly just for simplicity for myself, since, I'm not buying any of the new source material, and also an app that I really like to use called, I'm going to plug it real quick, Spells 5e. They still have everything broken down into each class, and so it just makes it simpler for me to keep that the way that everything's organized in my version. So, but if you wanted to, utilize the way that they broke it down in the newer edition, feel more than free. I'm sure you can figure that out pretty easily. So moving on here, expertise is at 2nd level instead of at 3rd level as it was in 2014. That is actually in the same vein here as the Unearthed Arcana. you gain expertise in 2 of your skill proficiencies of your choice. I will say this, I actually pushed Jack of all trades to later in the class. I do not have it at 2nd level anymore. And additionally, I no longer have the bard getting 2 expertise throughout the class. I think that expertise is super cool. I do like that the bard can have this really specialized build that you want it to, especially if you put that expertise into persuasion or deception or your charisma based skills. It really jumps up your ability to consistently make those succeed. However, I think that with Jack of all trades, that is an extremely good feature, which I can actually just read it now. I do have it at 9th level. You can add half your proficiency bonus rounded down to any ability check you make that uses a skill proficiency you lack and that doesn't otherwise use your proficiency bonus. For example, if you make an athletics check and lack athletic proficiency, you can add half your proficiency bonus to the check. That is extremely good. I would say in a way that is actually better than expertise. That is a clear-cut bonus across the board from all skills that you lack proficiency. Insanely good. And I do think that with that and 1 expertise, the bard can feel very good across the board, but is not feeling like a rogue with spells. I want them to still kind of have that really favored skill set of ability checks and whatnot, but I didn't want to make it so it's so far pushed over the edge where like the bard basically can't fail anything. That's where I kind of wanted to steer clear of that. So I wanted to balance it a little bit better by dropping an expertise out of the class and then moving Jack of all trades to actually have to be, you have to progress a decent amount before you actually get that. So those are the kind of the main reasons why I did that. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and move on here. So at 3rd level, you are going to get your Bard subclass, which of course, now level 3, Song of Rest. For some reason, Wizards of the Coast decided to get rid of the Song of Rest feature. I think it was really cool. I think it was a fun way for you to be able to RP and kind of, just have the bard, have your character, if you are playing a bard, to be doing something during a short rest, and how you can kind of have that RP a bit and have that interaction between you and your fellow party members. And so I actually added it back. I adjusted a little bit from the 2014 version. In the 2014, you basically, if you or any friendly creatures who can hear your performance, basically it's a matter of just whoever could hear it would get the allotted healing. Whereas for me, I'm kind of specified some things. So you can use soothing music, oration, or dance to channel magic to help revitalize your wounded allies during downtime and rests. You and up to 8 friendly creatures who can hear or see your performance regain hit points equal to 1d6 plus your charisma modifier at the completion of a short rest. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. I really like this. I think it's really cool to have the bard be able to provide that additional healing during short rests, kind of give everyone a little bump to their HP, and kind of fit in that support role even more so. I did limit it to a certain amount of creatures because that way it's specified and it makes a little bit more sense in terms of just the mechanics. But that's essentially the biggest difference there. And then it does ramp up. It does get better, but you'll see that kind of as we progress here. So level 4 is going to be your ability score improvement, of course. Level 5 is the Font of Inspiration. You now also regain all of your expended uses of Bardic Inspiration when you finish a short rest. In addition, if you have no uses of Bardic Inspiration left, you can give yourself one by expending a spell slot, no action required. You can do so only once per turn. That is going to be an Unearthed Arcana, was the Coast feature here. I really like that. The front half of it would be from the 2014, where you do now regain all your Bardic Inspiration charges on a short rest. Super good, making it so that that short rest is even more beneficial for you as a class. But also, I do like the idea of making it so that you can get your kind of almost core class ability back by expending uses of spell slots. I really like that you can kind of resource exchange there. Super cool. I like that they added that, so I made sure to add that as well for mine. Level 6 is going to be the subclass feature, of course. Level 7 is going to be Counter Charm. You can use musical notes, words of power, or a warding jig to disrupt mind-influencing effects. If you or a creature within 60 feet of you fails a saving throw against an effect that applies a charmed or frightened condition, you can use your reaction to cause the save to be re-rolled, and the new roll has advantage. So Counter Charm, the verbiage has been cleaned up a little bit. In the 2014, it was like a whole paragraph, and there was, and actually one big difference is the fact that you had to, as an action, start a performance. So you were actively doing something to ward the party from either being charmed or frightened, and to give this benefit. I like that in the UA they just kind of cut all the extra fluff out and just made it so that you can use it on a reaction. You can kind of intervene. And it's also for you. It's you or a creature, so it's either yourself or someone else. But for me, I made it within 60 feet. I doubled the distance because I feel like Counter Charm is already a little bit of an underused feature, and so I really wanted to make sure that if you actually were in a situation where you could utilize this, I didn't want the range to be a thing that stops you. So I wanted to make sure there's a little bit more flexibility with that and more versatility in broader situations, because 30 feet's pretty close, especially depending on the size of your combat encounter, or say you're you're in the world, you're role playing, you're not necessarily doing combat. 60 feet really helps broaden that up, especially if maybe everyone's in this kind of larger space. It really helps with that in those situations. So level 8 is going to be the ability score improvement, of course. Level 9 is going to be the Jack of all trades. I won't go ahead and reread that, but I did push it once again to the lower kind of almost. It's pushing to the farther reaches of the front half of the class, because it is an extremely good feature. And I also wanted to make sure I pushed it back, especially for multi-classing. If you're in a multi-class, to be able to just even snag that at such a low level would just kind of be incredibly good and very beneficial to someone who's looking for a multi-class. And so pushing it down kind of forces people to stay a little bit more true to Bard, and then not necessarily just multi-class to grab a couple of those early game features. So, and then also at 9th level, the Song of Rest improvement. The hit points regained from your Song of Rest feature has increased to 1d12 plus your Charisma modifier. So before, the way the Song of Rest worked is it actually progressed kind of throughout the entirety of the class. I had it kind of ramp up quickly, because at 9th level and beyond, that 1d12 plus Charisma modifier healing is going to be really good. It's going to be beneficial. It's going to give you all your party members on a short rest additional health. But it's like, once you start getting into the back half of D&D, that's not going to be as significant as you might think. And so I wanted to make sure that you quickly got that D12 so that it felt like at least it was something. Whereas if you're slowly scaling it, like, you got a D12 at 17th level in the old Song of Rest. And so it's like by 17, like by even 10th, 11th level, you're dealing with such, intense threats, and the amount of damage that you can take in a single turn is so high that, waiting until the very, very end of the class to be able to get that D12 is just almost pointless. And so I wanted to give it a little bit earlier. And then level 10 is going to be one of the really, really good abilities for the Bard is Magical Secrets. You've collected magical knowledge from a wide spectrum of disciplines. As a result, you can now choose spells from any class spell list and use them for your Bard spell list. Essentially, it's the same as 2014. Just a little bit less wordy. And actually, looking at this, it talks about how you gain certain spells at certain levels, whereas they adjusted it in the UA where, you can just basically, from here on out, you can just choose spells from any discipline, any class. And that's really awesome. Really makes the Bard, if you stick with it, really versatile, being able to do basically just a whole wide range of spells. And so that's super good. Level 12 is going to be Inspiration for Battle. When you roll initiative and have no uses of Bardic Inspiration left, you regain 2 expended uses of it. So this is actually going to be the same as 18th level in Superior Inspiration. I mean, at 18th level, like, being able to regain uses of your kind of core class feature is really good. 2 uses of Bardic Inspiration is good. But 18th level is way far out for that to be really relevant. And so I pushed it down to 11th level, and I actually filled the back half of this class with a lot better features that I think, once we get to, I think you'll agree that they're pretty cool. So I pushed this a little bit closer so that way, I can fill in some of the gaps in the early game, so that way I can make room for, better features in the back half here. And so additionally, at 11th level, Bardic Projection, the range of your Bardic Inspiration feature increases to 75 feet. A little bump there, 15 feet more. Nothing insane, but enough to where it makes it more versatile. Makes your Bardic Inspiration, a little bit better. Allows your party to be a little bit farther spread out, with you being able to still utilize your feature there. So super good. Level 12, ability score improvement, of course, as normal. Level 13. So now we're getting into some of the homebrewed things that I've created for this class. So Song of Rest variant. You've learned to harness your revitalizing and soothing magic so that you can delegate it to where it's needed most. Instead of all the selected creatures regaining 1d12 plus your charisma modifier worth of hit points for your Song of Rest feature, you can now choose to allocate healing from a pool of 9d6s. For example, you could choose to give one creature 5d6, another creature 2d6, and then two other creatures 1d6. You can choose yourself as a creature when allocating your dice. The pool of dice variant does not add your charisma modifier to the rolls. I think this is it's a good way to make the feature still relevant in certain situations. This now makes it so that, this makes it so that if you're just like, out there adventuring and you have a frontliner, or you have like your rogue who's navigating, disarming traps, doing different things, and you have like maybe one or two of your party members really on the front line and doing things and taking damage through various encounters, this makes it so that if you take a short rest, you can really pour the healing into where it's needed instead of, if only one person's injured and all, you can choose up to 8 creatures, but all you're doing is giving it to, or wanting to give it to one. This makes it so that you can adjust it and give a lot more healing to one creature instead of doing, better healing to a mass group. And so that's kind of why I made this variant. Makes it so you have some good flexibility and really gives you some good support on a short rest and allows you to be able to put healing where it's needed. But yeah, the one downside is that you don't get to add your charisma modifier. So, I mean, at 13th level, you're probably going to have probably 20 charisma. And so at +5, you're getting rid of a guaranteed +5, but you can, really add those dice where you need them. So, moving on, level 14 subclass feature. Level 15 no class feature. Check the bar table to see what you have gained. So going up here, you will gain at 15th level. You actually now have your D12 as for your Bardic Inspiration die, and then you'll get one more spell prepared, and then you'll have access to your 7th level spell slots. Now, I will say in the intro video of this kind of series, I mentioned that I wanted every single class for D&D to have, or every single level in a class to have something for the player to be able to enjoy and be able to kind of increase their arsenal and make it feel rewarding. So the big reason why for all full casters and half casters, I've made it so that there's at least one level where you do not gain an actual class feature. A big reason why I wanted to do that is I wanted the marshals to kind of stand out a little bit in the sense that all marshals will have a feature for every single level. I wanted them to stand out a little bit with that. I wanted them to gain a little bit more features because spellcasters have access to, of course, all these different spells, and so their arsenal is already so diverse, so much wider because of that. And also on top of the fact that, you're not gaining an actual class feature at this 15th level, but you still are gaining something. Whereas a martial class, if they don't gain anything at a given level, then they generally don't get anything. There's no spells for them that could, there's no spell slots for them to increase and get. There's no like more spells that they can access. There's really not a whole lot that they're gaining. So it just, it still works well to have at least one gap in the full casters kind of timeline here. So level 16, ability score improvement. Level 17 is going to be the arcane replenishment. This is another homebrewed feature that I added in. Mastering your revitalizing magic that you can channel to heal your companions. You can now restore motes of a creature's magic wielding abilities. In addition to the healing that you give for your Song of Rest feature, you can also replenish a creature or creatures spell slots equivalent to that of a 5th level slot. For example, you can replace 3 first level and 1 second level spell slots for a single creature. Alternatively, you can choose to replenish 2 second level spell slots for one creature and 1 first level spell slot for another, or you can simply replenish a 5th level spell slot for a single creature. You can choose yourself as a creature when allocating your spell slots. Super cool. This just builds upon that Song of Rest, builds upon that replenishment that a bard can give to his party, not only with that hit points, but now with the magical abilities. Being able to recover those spell slots for your party members who don't gain, any of those spells back on a short rest. Super good. Allows you to, kind of give resources back to your party. Super good, super cool, and it makes that Song of Rest even better. So, level 18, Inspired Resolve. A creature can channel the inspiration you've given them to muster up its resolve to stay in the fight. A creature can now expend its use of Bardic Inspiration to gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the outcome of 2 rolls of the Bardic Inspiration die, plus your charisma modifier. Additionally, the next saving throw that the creature makes within the next minute is done so with advantage. A super good, super powerful way to now, widen that versatility of the Bardic Inspiration. Make it a little bit more geared to combat. Make it like the ability so that you can not only keep your party members in the fight longer, but then also hopefully potentially save them from a really nasty saving throw that they might have to make in an intense combat encounter. Super good. At 18th level, the things that you'll be facing, I think that this, it'll kind of keep you in the fight a bit longer, and it kind of opens up and broadens that range that you can utilize and help your party with those inspiration dice. So awesome there. Level 19, ability score improvement. Of course, same old. Now level 20, the Master of Word, Song, and Dance. So the last thing is I will compare this to the 20th level capstone. First of all, the capstone ability in the 2014 version was superior inspiration, where at 20th level, when you roll initiative and have no use of Bardic Inspiration left, you regain 1 use. So it was worse than this at 20th level. And so, Wizards of the Coast tried to make a capstone ability here. Words of Creation. You have mastered 2 of the prime words of creation, the words of life and death. You therefore always have the power word heal and power word kill spells prepared, and when you cast either spell, you can target a second creature with the spell, provided that creature is within 10 feet of the first target. Not bad. It's not bad. The only thing I don't like necessarily about this is the fact that you are kind of forced down this, I guess, you're kind of forced into the identity that your bard has always been, their vocation has always been utilizing words and speaking, where there hasn't been a kind of a cool shift of the RP of bards in the sense of like they really opened it up to where they wanted to include more of like, hey, if you're not necessarily all about words, it can be about song, or it can be about dance, it can be about a different kind of vocations instead of just words. And so this kind of just hardlined them into that for me. Additionally, it's pretty good. But, all you're doing is you're just giving them spells and then being like, hey, you can double cast this. Which, not to say double casting a 9th level spell is necessarily bad. It just doesn't feel like a true capstone for the class. It doesn't feel like you're really like, hey, I am the epitome of a bard. I've made it this far. Like, now I am the master of this craft. And so that is why I went through and I revised the 20th level here, and this is my version. Master of Word, Song, and Dance. When you speak, they listen. When you deceive, they believe. When you sing, they feel. When you dance, they are compelled. You have mastered your bardic vocation and gained the following benefits. Vocation Mastery. Your charisma score increases by 2, and its new maximum is 22. Charming Persuasion. Before you make a persuasion check, you can choose to magically enhance your words to come across as more sincere and friendly. If the check is successful, the targeted creature becomes charmed by you for the next 5 minutes. Whether you charm the creature or not, they are unaware of the magic that was used and become immune to this feature's effects for 24 hours. You can use this feature twice per long rest. Frightening Intimidation. Before you make an intimidation check, you can choose to magically enhance your words to come across as more threatening and overwhelming. If the check is successful, the targeted creature becomes frightened of you for the next 5 minutes. Whether you frighten the creature or not, they are unaware of the magic that was used and become immune to this feature's effects for 24 hours. You can use this feature twice per long rest. Extraordinary Performer. Whenever you make a performance check, you can treat a roll of 9 or lower as a 10. So, automatically buffing that, primary skill to a 22 just makes you feel like you have really pushed the threshold of what a D&D class is, or what a bard can be. Charming Persuasion and Frightening Intimidation, I like these a lot because what it does is it allows you to be able to it really makes the bard feel like, especially at this point in the game, makes it feel like you can really have that influence over situations and encounters. It lets you be able to, obviously there's still a little bit of room for error there, but it really lets you be able to kind of swing things in certain ways because of your ability to persuade and be able to interact or intimidate or whatever it is. Your charisma is so, so refined, and with magical abilities that you kind of entwine with it, it just makes it so that you can really have this influence over creatures. And I just think it's to be really cool for RP, and really and just kind of makes it feel like more of a class identified capstone ability. I wanted to make sure that it did feel balanced in certain ways. 5 minutes, I feel like if you're role playing, 5 minutes can go by pretty quick. It really can. So it kind of gets you, it kind of makes you have a little bit of a timeline if you're utilizing this, to talk to individuals or to maybe intimidate individuals for certain, whatever reasons in the story. But also, I mean, you could utilize these in combat in some capacity. And, it could really change the course of certain things. So I think there's a lot of play here, making it a lot of fun. And, but having the creatures become immune to it if it does fail kind of gives that buff, or kind of gives that balancing of where you don't have, so that way the bard's not just spamming it multiple times and trying to, just force his way through, or force their way through a situation. So, and then I just wanted to really encapsulate the fact that, if you're a 20th level bard, dude, you're so good at playing the musical instruments or whatever your vocation is or whatever it is that you do to perform, that the chances of you actually failing that is slim to none. And so I really wanted to throw that in there too, to just make it really feel like after all these years or time of practice, dude, like you're the GOAT essentially. So anyway, a little long-winded, I understand, but with a full caster and with this bard was definitely something that I went through and I definitely revised a bit more than the previous class that like barbarian. Barbarian had some pretty solid changes already embedded into it, so I didn't have to do too much here. But the bard was something that I really wanted to make the back half a lot better and kind of tweak some things to ultimately make their overall skill set and support a lot more versatile and a little bit more wide range. So. But yeah, that's the bard. Please let me know if you what you think. In the comments, of course. Any constructive feedback is appreciated. Any things that you might see that could maybe be kind of tweaked, or maybe ideas that you have. Feel more than free to leave those in the comments. But yeah. Oh, and also the link for this home brewery PDF is going to be in the description. I did use the home brewery. If you don't know what that is, it's an awesome website where basically you can build out PDFs like this, documents like this in the DnD kind of format. And so I will have the link in the description of the video, so make sure you check that out. You can download it, you can play test it, use it. Hey, chop it up, use what you want, get rid of what you don't want, whatever it is. You can definitely utilize it any way you want. But yeah, that's those are kind of the big changes that I made. And so that's about all I got here. So I guess I'll see you in the next video.